Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Idiosyncratic Fables, where the whole premise and point of this podcast is that everybody has a story to tell, and I want to hear yours. My name is James, and today I'm sitting down with someone who has influenced more careers, more performances, and more booth philosophies than almost anyone working today. Johnny Heller isn't just prolific, he's a force. A teacher, a mentor, a comedian, and a narrator whose range stretches from razor-sharp nonfiction to character-driven fiction that feels like live theater. If you spent any time in the audiobook world, you've either learned from him directly or learned from someone who did. We're diving into craft, career longevity, the state of the industry, and of course, a few stories only Johnny can tell. So settle in. This is going to be a good one. Johnny, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show today. I really appreciate you, man.
Happy to be here. I should let you know at the top, I plan on doing all my answers in mime.
Outstanding. I look forward to it because it's a special treat for me. Dear listener, I'm sorry in advance. You're going to miss out on some greatness. So let's go ahead and kick it off with craft and performance. What's the very first thing you do when you sit down with a new manuscript before you go to narrate it?
Assuming, well, before I read it first. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
The first thing one does is read the manuscript. Now, I'll say this. People ask me all the time, do you have to read the book first? The answer is yes, of course you do. You can't, you're telling a story. You're sharing a story, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. And it's like a comedian. You can't tell a joke if you don't know the punchline. You can't tell where you're going, so you have to, and also there's all the things you want to do to tell the story, to add in the feelings of the scene, the emotions, whatever, fiction or nonfiction. You have to read it first. Having said that, there are certain books, almost always nonfiction, that you can almost skim because it's similar. These kind of books like I'm Okay and You're, might be if you follow my instructions. So when the book begins, it's like, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you, then here's me telling you, and here's me finishing up telling you again. That kind of stuff, you sort of know what's going on, but you still have to read it and know it because you don't know what words, what places, what stories the author will bring up that you need to pronounce the names of places correctly and stuff. And my friend Don Barnes has just come out with this pre-read software that answers a lot of those and kind of nutshells chapters and gives you all this stuff. But even then, you still have to read the book, I think. I've had book preppers a few times and I've been busy, prepped the book, but I still had to read it or I didn't feel it was mine.
Gotcha. How would you say you approach character differentiation without drifting into caricature?
Oh, great. It's a larger, I don't want to come across as all-knowing. Let me say this at the top. all the top flight actors, narrators, anybody who knows their craft and works may have a different approach, but we all have the same goal. In the audiobook world, the goal is to tell the author's truth in a way that is most satisfactory and most entertaining to the end user, who's the listener. So what gets you there? For me, if it's it might actually be a caricature. It depends what kind of book it is.
Right.
But in terms of characterization, who are these people? These people, it doesn't matter if it's a sci-fi book and it's a talking rock, or a talking rock doesn't know it's a talking rock. It just is what it is. So our judgments don't matter. So you got to play the character. So people are kind, they're not kind. They're friendly, they're not friendly. And everybody has everything in them. Meaning the nicest person you know probably has, I'd like to kill that guy thoughts once in a while. They're there. So to find the character, what's happening in the context of the scene, I suggest to everyone that you write down every character in the book and write your first impressions down. Meaning, what do you think? How would you cast this? Let's say this guy reminds you of James. Well, let's put James in there. I don't need to do an impersonation of James, but James has a different way of expressing himself in any given situation than I do. So there's a difference. And whatever you do, and also, you bring in, I don't know, if you're theater trained, you bring in your Stanislavski, that's how I was trained, but there's Shirtlift, there's Meisner, there's all these things. The idea is you find out everything about a character. If you do a play, let's say you're doing Willy Loman, you know everything about Willy Loman from what he says about himself, what other people say about him, and what the author says about him. Those three things. And then I'd add a fourth, the context of the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Place. So you think about all those things, but let's say you decide, oh, this guy's he's a snooty Boston lawyer. That's who he is. Depending on the kind of book, he may be Mayor Quimby from The Simpsons. He could be almost any Kennedy you choose. It just depends what's happening in the book. So the way you play the characters, it's not a caricature. It's not a voice. The voice should be different based on what you find. But if you cast from your frame of reference, and that means the barista at Starbucks all the way to Gene Hackman or Michael Caine or whoever, or anybody, or Daniel Radcliffe, whatever you want.
Or even an old college professor talking about a sandwich.
Yes, or your wife or your son or your uncle or anybody. Who would you cast? And it doesn't have to be an actor. And what are they like? And why would you cast them? And then as you go along, you say, may I miscast that, which is why we have, those little squiggly lines we can erase and put new squiggly lines in when we get it right.
Talking about how we all are reaching the same goal and how we get there brings me to my next question as far as pacing goes. What's your philosophy on that, but especially in high-tension scenes?
Your audience can't see me. There's a sign behind me that says what I feel about things. You need to slow down. We all speak quick. I speak quickly. You can tell. I'm a pretty hyper guy. So there's all this kind of thing with me. Well, that doesn't play all the time. In a given character, my hyperactivity may be perfect, but other people, you're much more subdued than I. Your pace is much different than mine. So you have to play the character's pace, but even the most slow talking, slow walking, slow thinking person will move faster when running from someone with a gun. So what's going on in the scene? What's happening? And again, no character is always the same. You think of Mother Teresa as the example of patience and virtue and kindness. Well, what if she's, fighting off a gang of zombies, Well, then she's probably not as pleasant. So in the pacing depends on the context of the scene. And understand that everybody, from the fast talkers to the slow talkers, responds in their own way. There's a flight or fight response in everybody, and it's triggered differently. And you have to decide what their response is. And the author gives you clues all the time. Everybody says, I don't know what to do. And I promise you, you do know. You just don't want to admit that you know.
It's all about finding those small little information nuggets, if you will, or like putting on your personal Sherlock Holmes hat and finding those clues, yeah?
See, I'm not sure, James, it's as difficult as that. I think if you sit down and just read a book, whatever it is, you just read it.
Yeah.
You'll have the whole story in your head. You'll see, I guarantee you sit, all the images, authors write in words that create images in the reader's mind. So every book is a movie. And the movie plays, it plays for you and it plays for me. So if you like the book and you follow it along, you follow, everything works. I promise that you cast every character. I promise you know what they're going to do in every given scene. It's when you try to change that into acting it that you encounter problems, and the problems aren't in the script. They're with the individual, and they're fixable, all of them.
Well said. Yeah, I agree. So that brings me to my next one. How do you keep long series consistent without sounding stale or repetitive?
You mean books with the something fable book 15 or something?
Yeah, let's say you like a trilogy or a quadrilogy, whatever it's out there.
How do you keep it from, say again, I'm sorry?
Yeah, how do you keep it consistent without sounding stale or repetitive?
Okay. It's interesting. I see, again, the idea that it might sound stale or repetitive is a negative thing that we put out there that doesn't really exist. It isn't. Like, let's say here, you have lunch or dinner every day. You may enjoy one meal more than another, but it's not stale or repetitive, it's dinner. And it's
right.
Nice. It's a good thing. The same thing in your books, characters are presented, particularly in these lit RPGs like and romanticities and these quests and things. You encounter scenarios where you've got to beat a bunch of vampires or a bunch of whatever the hell you've got to beat, and you fight them and you fight them. And it's not all the same because they're different enemies. And in most of these books, you learn something new about the character or about new powers you get for defeating the enemies, which changes things. I think each incident you just look at it as a new scene. It's only stale if I think it's stale, then by God it is. So the answer is don't think it's stale. It's interesting. If I haven't read it yet, and now it's coming up, the character doesn't know about it. And that's where you got to play. If you're playing the character, in terms of keeping the characters the same, I think we all know that you've got to bookmark your characters. If I decide somebody has, a posh British accent, and that's what they do, in book 3, they can't suddenly be Jamaican. You got to keep track some way or another of people do different things. All my stuff's on my voice memos on my iPhone. It goes back to, 2015 or so, earlier. Every character I've ever done, because I don't know. You never know if an author's going to do book 2.
Right.
And you have to be ready. And that also should help you make selections for your characterizations. Don't ever pick anything that hurts your voice. Let's say it's a pirate. I've only got to do it for a little bit in this book. What if the next book's all about the pirate? And there you are. So you have to make choices that are effective and true and that work and that don't hurt the instrument so that you can do book 2, 3, and 4. But I think, again, James, I think the thing is the problems actors have in audiobook narration are the actors' problems, not the author's problems. They're not performance problems. They're things we bring with us that we've told ourselves we can't do. I'm not tall. I know I cannot dunk a basketball without a lift or a ladder. I can't. It's not. However, I can still make a shot. The thing is, so let me make the shot. The only things we can't do in an acting standpoint are the things we've convinced ourselves we can't do. If you do a crappy French accent, well, then, then know it and deal with it. Learn how to do a better one if it's going to come up again. But the things we can't do, I think we have a longer list than reality would have for us.
That makes sense. Let's shift over into career and longevity then. You've been in the audio industry for decades. What would you say has changed the most in how narrators build a career?
Well, let me think. There's a lot more. I don't know if they build it. There's a lot of social media, which is everywhere now. Let's be honest, wasn't even a thing when I started. I can't remember when I don't remember when the internet started, but I'm just saying that now we do things, even the Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and blah, 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 all these things, Discord, all these things, they're all there. So I think that one of the differences now is that didn't exist before. Publishers, producers, talent buyers, rights holders are on social media. And so are you. So you guys can connect there. And that wasn't an opportunity before, which leads me to a cautionary idea that be wary of what you say in social media because it doesn't go away and it exists forever, no matter what you think.
Oh, yeah.
If it's late night and you're angry and you're drunk and you want to get something out, social media is not the place to do it. It's not a safe place. People who follow me on social media know that I'm very political. They know where I stand. Now, if you're a conservative right-wing author, you're probably not going to want me, although some have asked for me specifically because of that. But I've lost gigs because I'm liberal and I'm a lefty pinko, but I've also picked up gigs because of it. But be aware of, what you say makes a difference, and it could affect jobs you get or don't get. So that's part of it. Another thing is, when I started, there were a small X number of major publishers who hired people. And there weren't all these there's a bunch more companies now and a bunch of actors who do their own production companies now. Nobody did that. When I started with recorded books, I didn't even know there was Audible at the time. I didn't know there was Penguin Random House. I didn't know. I worked for recorded books. when I said, "Oh my God," other people asked me for work, and I said, "I didn't know who you were." So yeah, I met a lot of people when I started, at Audis. I didn't know about the Audi. I didn't know anything. I always thought when I started in audiobooks, I thought it was another gig that would pay the way while I try to be, the stage actor I wanted to be or the film actor I wanted to be. I didn't know it would become where I lived. I just thought, I thought it was a bar job. It checks off all the boxes for me, except for immediacy of audience reaction. Other than that, though, it's everything I want it to be. And I found a home that I'm very happy in.
Fantastic. Going back to the bit about social media, and as far as narrators having profiles and whatnot, there are quite a few narrators out there, myself included, that also narrate additional content under pseudonyms just to have that differentiation. Would you say it's effective and or beneficial to have separate social media accounts for the pseudonym or no?
Absolutely. If you're going to have a pseudonym that's going to work, let's say Johnny Heller wants to have an erotica name, so I picked James Cheatham. So, well, if I want work on that, I've got to build that thing up too, make it a real person. I have to market all this kind of things. So to increase, now there's nothing wrong with a pseudonym. Just be aware that it means a little more work for you in terms of marketing. I have a pseudonym who just does British stuff, but I don't really push it. And most of the people, and I started thinking that'd be a great idea, but then people just said, just use your name and be British, because I grew up in a British family. So
right.
So I said, all right. So sometimes I use it. Most of the time I don't. So I don't need to market it because no one gives a rat's ass if I do it. Can I say that?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. No one knows. No one really cares about it at all. But here's Johnny Heller, and I started out doing a lot of kid stuff, So if I'm suddenly going to do some really, deep, dirty erotica, well, I don't want mom and dad to get a Johnny Heller book to put in the to listen to in the car on the way down to Disney World. and it's not Horrible Harry in room 3B. It's Horrible Harry pulls a train or so. I gotta you gotta. So there's some reasons to do it, but yeah, I think you got to keep both or all three, as many pseudonyms as you want. And I know many, many, many people do it. And because I think mostly it's in the erotica world, they want to keep that separate from. It doesn't mean they're ashamed by any stretch of the imagination. It just means it's a different marketing and a different audience they're playing to. So, yeah.
All righty. So there you go. If you're a narrator listening to this and you have a pseudonym, and if you haven't done it yet, then you may want to consider building that social media marketing as well for, well, both personas, I dare say.
Yeah.
So let's move into a little bit now of the industry insight. What trends in audiobook production excite you? And on the other side of the coin, which ones concern you?
I'm excited by the move into more multi-cast productions. The dual narrations have been going very well. Now, a lot of the dual narration stuff is in the romance. And by the way, the romance genre is romance and then erotica. It's different. And then there's umbrella. That's an umbrella term. There's millions of things under them.
Right.
So a lot of dual narrate, but there's dual narrations in a lot of things, as opposed to Johnny doing, the male part and the female part. I may just do the male part and a female comes in. And I think that's kind of neat. It really helps the listener sometimes. And now there's also these multi-cast things with music and tech stuff and thunder and all that stuff. Now, I don't know about all the sound effects, if I like that. But I do like the idea of a multi-cast thing. It allows the actor to really get into a character and play just that character as you would in theater. Like if you're in Death of a Salesman, I use that all. You're playing Willie Loman. You're not playing Biff and Happy as well.
Right.
If you're playing Happy, you're playing Happy. So that's what it is. On the other hand, one of the things I like about multicast, because I'm pretty good at playing characters, I generally get to play 5 or more characters in a given book. And I like to make it hard. I like it when people don't know that it's me doing all of them. Paul Rubin directed a Macbeth, an audio thing for Dreamscape, and I thought it was fantastic. And I think I played 7 different characters. And even as I listened to it, and I did, I didn't know it was me at first. I was like, what? I forgot it. But I think that's cool. I think the multi, and also a bonus for multicast, if you're into awards and things, if the book is up for Sauvage and Audi or whatever the other things comes up, you don't have to do a whole lot of work to get to get that award. Your 5 lines may be enough to net you a trophy, which is
Right.
nice. And the other side of the coin, the thing that I find disturbing, couple things. One, anybody who has the equipment and spends the time and the money might be able to get a job as an audiobook narrator, might be able to narrate without training and without ability. And it brings down the entire industry. What it does, it opens the door to the main issue and the main threat we have, of course, is AI. If a book is done by virtual voice, I think that's a detriment to all actors and all creators everywhere. I'm not against AI per se. I mean, we use Google Map all the time. We use Wave. We use AI regularly without thinking about it. When you talk to your phone to do a text message, that's all AI. But an AI is an actor. If an AI actor can convincingly do better than you at telling a story, you need to up your game.
Correct.
Simple as that. And I think AI will never approach human emotion because they're inhuman. And I think it's important and absolutely necessary for every actor to continually, you don't have to come to Johnny Heller for coaching. I'm not trying to sell myself, but you need to work. You need to get in acting workshops, scene studies, improv, work with coaches, work with other actors, get together and do reads together. Improve your game, improve your craft, improve your skills so that you are irreplaceable. If the listeners decide that an AI voice just reading a line after a line after a line is what they want, they'll get that. But if they want acting, if they want someone to share the author's truth in a way that's magical and wonderful and true and delights the listener, they need an actor. And that's what you guys need to be if you want to do this. Simple as that.
Correct. I actually have a button pinned here in my studio that simply says AI can't cry, and with, of course, the hashtag human voice, given to me by a friend and narrator colleague, Emma Fay. And it's been a wonderful reminder that I can't slip back into just the doldrums, as I would call it.
Yeah. If there's a part of the book that's boring for you and you think it's boring when you're reading it, guess what the listener's thinking?
Boring.
So that's, if there's any part in the telling of the tale that you're not connected to the telling of the tale, redo it.
Correct. For me personally, I know there have been a few times, thankfully not many, where I find myself slipping into an almost autopilot mode and disconnecting from what I'm reading, and my mouth just seems to be going on its own. And when I come back to reality, I'll be like, oh my gosh, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
And then I go back and listen, like, ugh. So I have to go back and re-record it to make sure that I am engaging, to make sure that I am connecting with the text.
James, that's great. It's great that you recognize it. Even better that you went and fixed it.
Yeah.
Because I know actors who recognize it and don't fix it. Oh, don't listen to that part. That's not good. Well, then don't do that part.
Yeah.
It happens, and it also happens to everybody. There are times I'm reading along, and all of a sudden I say, "What in the world? I don't even know what I'm talking about."
Right.
And I've got to go find at what point in the script did I stop paying attention and start thinking about lunch.
Right. That, speaking of food, that's often where my mind will drift to, because I am more often than not responsible for making breakfast for the family here at the house. And we also do a weekly tradition. Every Saturday night is pizza and movie night here at my house. And so I do all the pizza dough from scratch. I do my own pizza sauce from scratch, and then we'll just buy ingredients for toppings. And it is the most inexpensive and tastiest pizza dinner we've ever had in our entire lives.
Wow.
And I've gotten pretty good at doing a Sicilian crust, New York crust. Detroit was pretty good. Chicago, that one's pretty good too. But I think my two favorites have been a tie between the New York style crust and the Sicilian crust.
Oh yeah. Well, my pizza night involves me picking up the phone and calling Grubhub. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all.
I generally do most of the cooking now. I think because our kitchen is so small, Joanna just gets frustrated. because it's really time. We're moving to a new place with an actual kitchen.
Right.
Boy, that's going to be special. Can't wait for Joanna. Joanna's Sicilian. She's a great cook. Yeah. And so I'm very excited about turning over culinary tasks because I'm British, if it has too much flavor, I can't eat it.
Seasoning, what's that? Nah, we'll pass.
Oh, garlic. My God, I love garlic, and garlic hates me.
Oh.
Yeah, they'd never work. I still eat it all the time, but I'm one of those guys, I'm going to let my stomach pay for it later. If it tastes good, I'm eating it.
Care to share how garlic treats you on the back end?
Well, you said it yourself, on the back end.
All right. What would you say is the funniest or strangest direction you've ever received from a producer?
Funniest or strangest? Yeah, I'm not sure if I remember a specific time. In a more general sense, directions that are clearly counterintuitive or contradictory. I want to be really excited but laid back. Stuff like that. That's like, what do you? And also, I have had people say he needs to sound more like this guy I went to grade school with. I'm like, well,
okay.
Yeah, I said, well, I don't know that guy, so that's not going to happen. But I've never, to be honest with you, I've worked with a lot of publishers, and I've never really heard anything too absurd because most of the people are talent hirers, talent buyers now, in the publishing world, have come from either an acting background or, more likely, an engineering background. It seems to be the engineers who move into take the step up into casting. And it's rare that they know, the difference is they know what they want. The authors have a lot more say now. They think they know what the author wants, but sometimes it's hard to articulate what they really want. That's probably the biggest problem. Them not being able to articulate exactly what they want, mostly because they've been told a number of contradictory things from the author. So I don't know how stupid I don't think stupid or funny, just contradictory things that are impossible to play. And I will say that you get more of that in commercial jobs than in audiobook jobs. In commercials, it's just bizarre. When you get to the studio and you're doing the thing, and it's never what you auditioned for. It's always just a bunch, and there's usually 5 people in the other room who are talking about what you're doing and talking about you while you're doing it, and 5 different ideas. Can you do it with this? Can you do it with that? And it's always different accents, different speeds, different paces. So that kind of stuff can be a little it can be fun. It can be irritating if you want it to be, but can also be fun.
Because in a way, it kind of stretches you too.
Oh yeah. Here's the thing. I think acting needs to be like improv. Just say yes. Just say yes. Do the thing. Somebody, when you go to, I don't know if you've been to therapy. Everybody should be in therapy, but when you go to a therapist and he asks you or she asks you something, and it's too hard, and you don't want to deal with it, and so you respond the way people always like the way your kid will respond to, I don't know. The therapist will never let that sit, ever, ever, ever. They'll say something like, "What would you say if you did know?" It's right back to you. And I think that has to be the thing with actors. You can't not know. You've got to know. Every moment, every scene, every place, what's happening? What does the character want? What does this person want? What does that person want? What's happening in this scene? And whether or not you can articulate it, and I think you should be able to articulate it, but you may not say it, you may not admit it. There's a lot of people in this business, surprisingly to me, who are introverted, who have, what's the thing? You don't feel you belong. Come on, it's a phobia, a feeling you shouldn't be here. I'm on the opposite. It'll pop in my mind in 2 seconds. Everybody uses it all the time. God bless, I couldn't remember it. It'll pop in my head.
Right.
Yeah, the idea that you somehow don't belong with doing what you're doing.
Right. Something akin to
Imposter syndrome.
Value. That's the one.
My God, I couldn't find it. I would have been here a week. Kids, don't do drugs. But the imposter syndrome thing, and I'm thinking, you do belong. It is your job. They hired you because you know. And I think that's important that you should, I don't think actors give themselves enough credit. And it's, everybody wants the job. The book you're doing, James, is a book I didn't get. The book I'm doing, so you think about it. It's okay.
Right. There have been a handful of friends, narrators that have come to me, one day or another saying, hey, I'm feeling kind of down, depressed, yada, 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 didn't get this book, or I don't want to audition because of this reason or that. And I think I'm, succumbing to imposter syndrome. Even though they didn't say that, you can definitely hear it in their voice. My advice is always the same, but like, look, there will never be, and I'm just going to use my name for an example, there will never be another James Cheatham that is a narrator. There will never be another one like you. So therefore, you have to be the best version of you as possible. You're not, comparable to any other narrator out there. So stop it.
Yeah. Yeah. Accept the fact, look, and also you chose to do this. And one of the reasons I think people should, all people in this industry should take acting workshops and study acting, because this is an acting job. It's an acting craft. And the more you get involved, I don't care where you live, there's scene studies, there's improv, there's workshops. And for God's sakes, if you've never done theater, do community theater. Nothing is more fun. It's fun, and you learn so very much. And it really opens you up, because actors need to make choices all the time. And it opens up the world of choices, and it gets rid of the obstacles, because as we become adults, we start putting up walls and platforms around us. Two little kids, you and I can be two little kids playing around, playing superheroes. We could be Wonder Woman and Batgirl if we want. And neither one of us would care. There's no fear. Who cares? You can be whoever you want. As a matter of fact, for my money, I don't understand why Captain Marvel isn't the toughest superhero there is. I can't imagine. She could beat the Hulk, I think. So,
yeah, I think you're right.
When we think about this stuff, as you become adults, you build these walls and things you can't get through. Well, actors have got to tear down those walls. They've got to, because all feelings come from a place. You've got to be in touch with the feelings, and you can't let obstacles get in the way. And the obstacles of your life have no place in a book that isn't about your life.
Correct. There has to be a willingness to be vulnerable. And from that vulnerability, we're able to grow stronger and do better things.
I totally agree. Well said.
So with that being said, that is an excellent segue to my next question for you.
What, do you got a list?
I do, actually. Have you ever had a moment in the booth where you completely lost it?
Laughing or crying?
Either. Pick your emotion.
Well, both. Yeah, sure, of course I have.
Okay.
The laughter has come from either something really funny, you just funny stuff that you can't stop laughing about. The book called The Coaster was very funny. My friend Bill Sheff, who's right for Letterman, has a great book. What the hell's the name? Oh my God! I'll look it up real quick.
Yeah.
It's a funny book, and I laughed aloud. Let me go find him. Bill Sheff. There he is. I'll find the book. It's actually, I got a Silva's for it. It's called Tommy Dash. Was it Everything I Said? About a stand-up comic, and it's very funny. And I used to make a living as a stand-up comic, so it really related. In terms of losing it the other way, there have been any number of books where someone has died.
Yeah.
Marley and Me, for example.
Mm.
Well, it took me so many reads. I can't even tell you how many to try to get through, because, I'm not going to ruin it for anybody, but things happen. And Marley does not survive the book because dogs, and it's, and anybody who, if you fall in love with a character, a person, a dog, anything, and they pass in the book, it rips your heart out, and it's hard, and you're going to cry. And I'll tell you what, when you're filled with tears, you cannot communicate effectively. That's why when someone's crying, really bawling, all we do is go and hug and go, there. Because we don't know what they're talking about until you find a way to go, just until you can say it, and it's okay to have an emotional reaction. But remember, the audience has to know what you're saying. And if you're
Correct.
blubbering, they can't. So, yeah, there are times you break down and cry. Of course, you'd be inhuman not to. Even in books that I thought just below absolutely suck, there may be a moment that just pulls me in emotionally. And you've got to play it. You've got to get cry, 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 but then get to the point where you can talk about it as the character has to talk about it. And it may take you 12 takes, it may take the next day. But that's what has to happen. So yeah, I've done 1,200 books or more. So yeah, there's been plenty of times when I've laughed aloud or cried aloud.
I get it.
A lot of times when I worked with engineers and directors, a lot of the sometimes if it's not that great a book, and I make fun of it in the middle of it, sometimes that I crack myself up. I don't mean to.
I think I've done that a time or two with some books that were just absolutely horrendous,
Yep.
and the writing was just atrocious.
Yeah.
But recently, there was a lit RPG book. It's actually getting ready to come out on audio February 15th. And no spoilers, but there was a character in this series that was so well written that you could just easily not only picture somebody in your life that relates to this character, but was just so you could just grasp onto the concept, fall in love with the character, and then they passed away. And I broke. I
Oh
stopped
yeah.
for the day and I went downstairs, snotty mess of tears. My wife looks at me, she goes, "Oh my gosh, what's wrong?" I'm like, "This character died." And I had to take the rest of the day off.
Oh yeah. There are times, there's a book that just came out. Here's a weird thing. Sometimes your books get re-recorded by somebody. Like I did the book MASH, and I know it's coming out again, and I think Scott Brick's going to record. He called me and said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," but it was, I don't care. I already got paid and I did it. So there's a book called Full Service, which I did for Tantor some time ago, and I think after I don't know what happened, 7, 8, whatever the contract is, the book
Right.
goes out. So they wanted to redo it. Did the state of this guy. And so they wanted me to do it again, which I thought was weird. Why don't you just buy the rights again? Well, some companies, publishers have rules. They can't buy the rights. They got to redo it. So I did this book. Full Service is a story of Scotty Bowers in Hollywood, who ran in the 40s on, came out of the Marines, out of the war, handsome man. He and his friends hung around. He was a gas station attendant near Warner Brothers Studios. So all these stars would come in to look at all these, and he started pimping out everybody. According to him, this book is a tell-all about every famous Hollywood actor you can imagine, and everybody was doing everybody, according to this guy. And some of the things were so explicit and lewd and rude, like some of your favorite actors.
Right.
This one, somebody, I don't know how rude, I don't know how lewd I can be, but some of the stuff that went on, I'm like, oh, but because I'm not a prude, but I get embarrassed. So I'm like, oh my God. And I'd run out and tell Joanna, want to hear something about Charles Lawton? So you hear these, but all these people. I mean, geez, Glenn, that some guys are gay, some guys weren't, but according to our hero who wrote the book, he takes a nap in Griffith Park in LA Park. He wakes up and a guy is blowing him. I'm like, what? You sleep against a tree and that? I've been to Central Park 1,000 times, and no one has ever approached me. I'm thinking, I'm just thinking, I don't know how real any of this is, but it's just bizarre. But that's the beauty or lack of beauty of these books. But that book really, it's for me, it's quite graphic, and I'm not sure if any of it's true. And I'm telling it like it is. I don't know. I'm not calling the guy a liar because he passed away. Right. I have no idea. But everybody's talking about has passed away too. So yeah, I don't know.
All right, I got 2 final questions here for you before we wrap it up. If you could go back and give early career Johnny one piece of advice, what would it be?
2 pieces of advice. 1, slow down. I do it now, but I didn't know it then. We get paid. First off, the listener has to follow along, has to form the images. You have to give them time. Also, we get paid by the finished hour. So don't hurry. That's one. The second thing is, charge more. I was worth more than I took. And
Okay.
I allowed other people to set my rate. And I no longer allow that.
Gotcha. All right. And final question for you. I heard this from a little birdie, actually, more specifically, a particular voice with a twinkle in its eye, that you know something about stone skipping. Talk to me about that.
Jim Siebert chatting with you, was he?
Oh, yes, he was.
We were hired. I did some ESPN The Ocho, I think it was. And I did the, not the play-by-play as much as the color commentary. I did what do you call those hairdos? Those, from the 70s, those,
Mullets?
yes, mullet championships. I did lawnmower racing. I did a bunch of things. But Jim and I did the stone skipping championships, which is our thing. These guys go. I don't think there's a lot of money in the craft, but they go and they compete. And some of these guys can skip a stone like 20 times.
Yeah, I saw the footage. It's impressive.
Yeah, it was impressive. And I'll tell you this. I'm reasonably funny, and I think I am. And I don't. If you don't agree, then don't laugh. But Jim Siebert is a brilliant play-by-play man. Perfect voice, perfect tenor, and he's riffing. He is simply. I was amazed by how brilliant he was. It looked like he had been calling stone skipping his entire life, and neither one of us had ever heard of either. Yeah, obviously we've all skipped stones, but no, the idea of it's competitive is absurd.
Nothing to that degree. I actually had him as a guest here on Idiosyncratic Fables a couple episodes back, and that's how I had come to know about it. And I went, make a note to ask Johnny for next time.
Yeah, it was fun. It was not. I don't want to go into the background of it all, but it was fun to do, and Jim was a joy to work with, and it was really I think it still plays regularly on ESPN, the Ocho, or I don't know what they call it anymore.
Yeah, Jim was saying something that they play it once a year, I believe.
Yeah, they should do it again. I mean, it's really funny.
Johnny, you have been a fantastic guest once again. Thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of the show, man. You've been a true delight.
Well, thanks. It was fun to be on. I appreciate it.
And thank you, dear listener, for tuning in to another episode of Idiosyncratic Fables, brought to you by Wilderness Fire Productions, cultivating the passion for books, audiobooks, and overall storytelling. Also, if you would like to be a part of what happens behind the scenes when an audiobook is actually being narrated, then I invite you to join me in my Discord server for Wilderness Fire Productions. I'll leave the link for you down in the notes of the description for the episode. Remember, the main premise here is that everybody has a story to tell, and I want to hear yours. So until I talk to you next time, peace be with you.